I'm going to turn it over to Hunter Brown, who will give an acknowledgement of our tribal lands.
Thank you, Carrie. Niti Yagalidu, Hunter Brown, Shi'izi Kalan, Denina Eshlan Shidi. On behalf of the King County Democrats, I acknowledge the land on which we stand today as the traditional home of the Coast Salish and Duwamish tribes and the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, Snoqualmie, and Muckleshoot nations. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We recognize their invaluable contributions to our state, history, economy, and culture. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We'll strive to be honest about our past mistakes and trespasses and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hunter. I would now like to just give a brief overview. In our links to our agenda, we have an overview of Robert's Rules, and there's a Robert's Rules cheat sheet that I put in the agenda. So what this is the order of motions. There's also motions that you may want to have your voice heard, just so that you understand what is happening as we are using Robert's Rules to run our meeting. I highly recommend in your spare time, printing that and really understanding the best way to communicate in a meeting to really make sure your voice is heard. The other part of our meeting is our meeting norms, and I also included a link. And this is also a guideline of that we are all volunteers, we are all giving our time, and we respect the amazing work that we are all doing across this county to do the work to get policy into law that benefits the most human beings, getting Democrats elected, making sure that we are the body that has a say in our local governance. Part of that is being respectful, being kind, being aware that there are opinions different than yours. Not that it's out of alignment. It is just a part of how we communicate, and we are a deliberative body to make sure that we are representing and pulling in representation that meets our values as Democrats. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda, and that is to both adopt the agenda tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure, can we get the agenda put into the chat? And also approve the February minutes, which were sent out in the call to meeting. And so for this portion of the agenda, I am going to ask, are there any objections to the consent agenda? And if you do, please use your raised hand so I can see that and recognize you. Are there any objections? Thank you, Christina. Are there any objections? Last call. Any objections? Hearing none, both the agenda and the February minutes are adopted. Thank you guys so much. That was amazing. We're going to move on to the chair's report. And this is the chair's report. I'm going to take a little bit of time to really let you know what we've been doing this last month. And so welcome to what is now our March KCDCC e-board meeting. As a still relatively new leadership team, I can tell you that we are finally starting to hit our stride. And I'm so excited to share with you tonight all the work that we've been doing this past month. As I go through my report, there's a lot of information. We will send out a follow-up email with all the links in a summary for you to report back to your legislative district. I highly recommend looking at our last month's summary report. We had a lot of great links on the levy that we endorsed and different resources for behavioral health crises that do not involve police. Our biggest focus this past month has been getting our committees staffed with volunteers and getting meetings and plans underway. I will put in chat right now a sign-up link that if you'd like to volunteer for any of our committees, we especially want to do our best to make sure that there is representation from every LD on as many of our committees as possible. Just like last month, our biggest emphasis, has been on our endorsements committee, which is made up of a large team of nearly 60 LD members from across King County. I am so grateful for the people who have been working so hard on this committee. The endorsement process is such an important aspect of what we do as a party. It is how we decide which candidates we will lend our support and send our volunteers to. And according to statistics from the last election cycle, a May or June endorsement from us means an endorsed candidate has a 94% chance of still being in the race after the primaries are over. Who we endorse at a party matters so much to policy outcomes in King County and therefore the policy debates that happen throughout Washington and across the nation. We have 311 open seats up for election this year. This means our endorsement committee spent all of February coming up with our 7 different endorsement questionnaires. These questionnaires cover school board races, port commissioner races, judicial races, county commissioner, races for city council, and a questionnaire that is given to every candidate about their specific histories and values, and a questionnaire designed specifically for a very crowded Seattle City Council races that are happening this year. The committee has then spent this past month editing, updating, and making changes to those questionnaires that we will be adopting those recommended amendments during tonight's meeting. Interviews with candidates will begin mid-May, with the actual endorsements by King County being made at the end of May. This committee has my most honored respect, and I am asking that we all recognizing their amazing work product that we truly benefit from. They came together from all areas across this county, and King County is not a monolith. They came from all different cities, jurisdictions, locales, and I am just so thrilled to share what a collaborative group that this endorsement committee has been. In our other committee news, our outreach committee, chaired by the incomparable Yvette Magana, has been busy meeting with key stakeholders in organizations around the county, sharing with them our vision for how to engage with voters, recruit new candidates, and support the work that is aligned with our values as a political organization. This type of coalition building is so important for our own goals to support the values we all share. And we hope to introduce some of the stakeholders to all of you at our future e-board meetings, as well as invite you all to future actionable events, and that we hope to put out in conjunction with some of these amazing groups as we work together jointly to raise awareness about our values and voter priorities. We will also have an update from our candidate recruitment and support committee later this evening, as we're shifting our recruitment into high gear for the months of April and May. To tie what we have endorsed through the King County Prop 1, which will help build behavioral health across the county, just to remind you, the lack of walking care and behavioral health providers and workforce across our region has put our behavioral health system and our neighbors who depend on it in crisis. King County Prop 1 will be on our April 25th ballots, and there are 3 virtual events to learn more about this levy. April 3rd on the east side, Southwest King County on April 3rd, the same day at 6:15, and South King County on April 5th at 5:30. We're organizing volunteers for this levy jointly with King County Prop 1, and hopefully there'll be a link in chat where you can volunteer. Please share this link with your LD and volunteer your time. We'll be sending this out for folks to join in, and there are several text banking opportunities to activate our PCOs, volunteer, and sign up throughout the month, and those will also be in chat. So thank you so much. That is the end of my chair's report. Moving on to the next part of our election, is our endorsement of our at-large committee members. And I'm going to go ahead and put into chat the bylaws, section 2.2, which states exactly, let me just put this in here really quick. Thank you. How we define our at-large members by community. And I'm going to also put in what this looks like. So we use King County Community Geographics. Let me just put this in here as well. So that you can see that what we are, part of our bylaws state that for our at-large members, which is our community members who join in our Code of Conduct Committee, represent geographic areas of King County. North King County, East King County, South King County, and Seattle King County representative. This is an amazing group, and we do have self-nominated people, folks who have dedicated their time, their energy towards this committee for King County Democrats. We have 4 nominated candidates, 3 of which are returning. These members from the East region are Jen Carter, from the South King County region, EJ Juarez, from Seattle region, Crystal Fincher, and Catherine Creason, who is in the first LD, who is a new member representing the North. And I'm going to go ahead and put in chat right now the link to the nominated candidates. Sorry, this may just take a second. Hopefully that will come through. Christine, is there a link that we can put into chat, or is that not working?
Yeah, let me grab it.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have a nominated candidate for the North region. We have a nominated candidate for the East region. We have a nominated candidate for the South region, and we have a nominated candidate for the Seattle region. I'm going to go ahead and read our North candidate statement. And that is Catherine Creason became involved in the Democratic Party, volunteering with the Seattle for Warren campaign. In 2022, she joined the King County Democrats team working to recruit diverse candidates as PCOs. She helped facilitate the process change to an electronic signature process for PCO appointments. She served on the executive board for the 46th Legislative District as a KCDCC alternate in 2021 until being redistricted into the first LD. Are there any nominations for the North region? And James put in, if you are looking at the spreadsheet, it is the second tab for candidate statements. And as we will start with the North region, I'm going to pause really quick. And Melissa Taylor, I see your hand raised.
Yes, just a quick administrative thing. Crystal Fincher is in the South region and EJ Juarez is in the Seattle region. So there's just, yeah, it just got flipped, but just in case anybody was wondering if they had moved, I wanted to clarify.
And we will get that corrected really fast. Thank you so much for that correction. I'm going to just on my South King County. Thank you so much. As we start with the first North King County representative, we have 1 nominated candidate. I have just read the candidate statement, and I will now open the floor. Are there any other nominations? And please use your raised hand button under the reactions at the bottom of your screen. Are there any other nominations? Last call. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Nominations are closed. I will next move to the Seattle region with EJ Juarez. His candidate statement. Hi, Democrats. I would be honored to continue serving on the Code of Conduct Committee. Our party has an obligation to hold ourselves to the standards and ethics that we expect from our elected officials, and serving on this committee is one way to help show the public and our colleagues, quote, we walk the talk, and are fearless in our commitment to running a safe, respectful, and ethical organization. Having previously served on the Washington Commission for Judicial Conduct, moderated numerous political forums, and as a mediator, I believe I can serve in this role well without bias, and would ask for your support to continue serving our party as a member of the Code of Conduct Committee. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the Seattle region? Are there any other nominations? Last call, are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. For our South King County region, Crystal Fincher is a returning Code of Conduct Committee at-large member. And by day, Crystal Fincher is a founder and principal of Fincher Consulting, a full-service consulting firm. Fincher Consulting has helped advocacy organizations and local political organizations develop and deploy successful strategies to build and increase representation, inclusion, engagement, and turnout, particularly in underrepresented areas and among infrequent voters. Crystal also hosts Hacks and Wonks, a radio show and podcast, providing insight into local politics and policy into Washington State. Crystal's background in economic development and civic policy has informed her political career. She has served on the City of Kent Land Use and Planning Board as the first African-American and the youngest member in its history. Crystal currently serves on the board of the Institute for Democratic Future and the Urbanist, and has served as a deputy on the Washington Roundtable on the boards of Kent Youth and Family Services, Tabor 100 as the Economic Development Chair, and the Northwest Association of Financial Professionals. Are there any other nominations for the South King County at-large representative? Please use your raised hand. Are there any other nominations for the South King County? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. We have a nomination for our East Region Representative Jen Carter, who has in the past served on our Code of Conduct. Her candidate statement. It has been an honor to serve on the Code of Conduct Committee, and I'd like to continue to serve for another term. It's important to include representation from across the county, and I proudly represent rural East King in the 5th LD. With so many folks and so much activity centered around Seattle, I like bringing a perspective from, quote, outside while still living and practicing Democratic Party values. I'm a tech professional, a progressive indivisible activist, and an elected public hospital commissioner. More importantly, I'm a mother of 2 school-age boys. I will bring kindness, thoughtfulness, and fairness to my seat on the committee. Everyone gets a fair shake, but nobody, I mean nobody, gets to make my fellow Democrats feel unsafe or unwelcome. Please re-elect Jen Carter to the Code of Conduct Committee, end quote. Are there any other nominations for East Region Representative at Large? Are there any other nominations? Last call. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. I will now entertain a motion that we elect by acclamation the uncontested positions, which are all 4.
So
Melissa
moved.
Taylor, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Last call, are there any objections? Hearing none. Congratulations to you all. You have been elected, and we are proud and honored to have you serving another 2-year term, and we welcome our newest member to serve the next 2-year term. We appreciate you and thank you so much. We are moving on to the next part of our agenda, which is, and we're doing really good on time, to the adoption of our final endorsement committee candidate questionnaire. I am going to turn over, because you guys have heard me speak a lot for the last half an hour. I'm going to turn over to the chair of our King County Endorsement Committee, Martin Cheney. And I just want to say he has been doing amazing work with his vice chair, Beth Baisley. I just want us all to really reflect and just honor the time that they have committed to this process. And with that, we will spotlight Martin so that he can address the body. Thank you, Martin.
There we go. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Wow. I never get praised like that very often. So the endorsement committee has been working hard for the last month with 6 full committee meetings in March and countless subcommittees. Whoops. Whoops. Sorry, I opened the wrong file there. Oh no. I have things all prepared. Okay, I'm gonna just. Sorry.
Technology.
Okay, I'm gonna just read my printed copies. No, that's the wrong one again. Where is the report? Okay, all right. Start over again. Sorry for that. Since submitting the draft questionnaires for the 2023 election cycle at the February meeting, the endorsement committee has had 8 full committee meetings representing in excess of 300 person-hours of work, laying the foundation to start accepting endorsement requests early in April, with interviews beginning April 15th and presenting a slate of endorsement recommendations in time for the May 23rd King County Democratic Central Committee Executive Board meeting. Approving a set of 2023 candidate questionnaires tonight will make it possible for KCDCC to make timely endorsement recommendations for candidates who want to feature their KCDCC endorsement in the election voters pamphlet. Now, at this time, I'd like to thank and recognize all the endorsement committee members who've been working so hard these past 2 months on the endorsement process, infrastructure, and questionnaires, as well as everyone who submitted amendment proposals. If this was an in-person meeting, I'd ask you to all stand up, but you could show who you are by raising your virtual hands, which will pop you to the top of everyone's screen so they can see who you are. I know that many of our endorsement committee members are also KCDCC executive board members. Wow, that is so impressive. Lots of you here, and thanks. If there are questions about our recommendations here, I'm sure that you folks will all have my back. A total of 11 proposed amendments were received from the KCDCC executive board members by the March 17th deadline. Of those, the endorsement committee recommends adopting 6 of them, not adopting 4 of them, and has no recommendation on 1 of them. In addition, there was 1 response which was not an amendment, but a process suggestion which the committee is implementing. If there are any individuals in your LDs who should have access to submitted candidate questionnaires, but are not an LD chair, a KCDCC endorsement committee member, or alternate, and cannot readily receive copies of the questionnaires through one of those people, please let us know, and we will add them to the endorsement committee access and emailing lists. I know that there are some LDs that have endorsement committees or election committees where the chairs of those committees are not part of the endorsement committee process as it is. And so those people specifically, we would like to make sure we get added to our distribution list so that they get those questionnaires. Now, as we debate and vote on the questionnaire and proposed amendments tonight, I'd like to ask that you avoid getting sidetracked by typos, grammatical issues, and similar minutia. The committee reserves the right to make such editorial changes, including parallel construction issues and other non-substantive changes, to maintain consistent structure of the questionnaires. At the conclusion of the report, and this is subject to Carrie telling me that I don't have the process quite down right, I'd like to place on the floor a series of motions on behalf of the endorsement committee, which I'd like to note under Robert's rules as a committee report, those motions on behalf of a committee do not require seconds. First motion would be to adopt the originally submitted questionnaires as a framework for further work. And passing that motion would ensure that we will exit the meeting tonight with a structure for timely primary endorsements. And second, to place the endorsement committee's recommendations, both of adopt and do not adopt, on the floor for accepting the committee's recommendations. That includes, there's one proposed amendment where our report says to adopt it in spirit. That's an example of a amendment which would require moderate level of editorial cleanup in order to maintain proper structure within the endorsement questionnaire. I'd like to assure people that we will make sure that, assuming that that amendment gets passed, that we will work with the maker of the motion to make sure that we maintain the intention and meaning of the amendment while getting our grammatical structure consistent. And then I hope, and so when we place that, my expectation is that there will be time or a provision for people to, on the executive board, to pull amendments from consideration for separate later consideration, so that the uncontroversial recommendations can be adopted as a slate with a unanimous consent motion. And following that, then I think it would be appropriate to allow all of the pulled recommendations plus the amendment for which the committee had no recommendation. And then there is one amendment which was received but not by our deadline, to separately debate and vote on those, followed by any amendments that people feel motivated to place on the floor from the meeting itself. And with that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions before concluding my report. Ooh, I see a hand up. Can I just go ahead and call on Melissa Taylor?
I think she's clapping.
Oh,
That is a clapping emoji.
my eyes.
Please, that's great. Please use your raised hand to ask a question, and Martin will recognize you. If you have questions, we've got a very informed group. This is amazing.
I'm going to hope that that's what that means. So, so Carrie, do I turn this back to you, or should I call for a vote?
You will turn it back to me, and I do see one hand with Josh Wilmot.
Awesome. Okay, Josh.
Hi there. Yeah, I just had one question. I was wondering if there would be an opportunity to add a question potentially for amendment on the floor this evening?
Should I answer that or will you answer that, Carrie?
Go ahead, Martin.
Okay, so my understanding is that once we get through the timely submitted amendments and the amendments that the body wants to discuss separately, and the amendments that that we had no recommendation on, and the amendment which was submitted late, that your proposed amendments would be in order, and provided that that the meeting keeps moving along fast enough that we can get to that.
Does that answer your question, Josh?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think, Martin, with that, you will hand the gavel back to me.
I'll hand the gavel back to you, and thank you. And such a marvelous group here, 45 people.
Thank you. And I will, we will also spotlight our parliamentarian, who is James Parker, just to keep us on track. So I hope everyone has had their questions answered. We will now entertain a motion to adopt the original questionnaire as a framework.
Melissa Taylor, so moved.
And
I will second.
thank you. The motion on the floor is to adopt the endorsement committee's original candidate questionnaire as a framework. Are there any other motions on the floor? Are there any other motions on the floor? Josh Wilmot, I still see your hand raised. Paul Chapman, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, just a question of clarification. Does this motion include the amendments?
I am looking
proposed?
for a motion to amend the original motion to include the 6 recommended.
I will motion to add the 6 amendments.
Thank you, Paul. Paul, great. Melissa has seconded. Paul Chapman has moved to amend the main motion to adopt the original endorsement questionnaire to include the 6 recommended amendments. And Melissa has seconded. Are there any other motions on the floor? Are there any other motions on the floor? Are there any other motions on the floor? Hearing none, we will begin debate on the amendment to add the 6 recommended amendments to the motion, to the main motion of adopting the original questionnaire as a framework. Paul, would you like to speak in favor of the addition to add the 6 amendments?
I will if there isn't a member of the committee who can speak to it.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of adopting the 6 recommended amendments to the candidate questionnaire from the endorsement committee? Beth Baisley, I see your hand raised.
Carrie, honestly, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to speak, but what I would like to say briefly is that the entire committee, 60 strong and 20 regularly active members, took 4 hours as a group and more hours separately to carefully review each of the recommended amendments. We were able to go through, consider those amendments compared to what is the work being done in the state legislature currently, to make sure they would be appropriate, compare it to the state party platform, and of course our democratic values. We then conferred if there was discussion with the people who were recommending each of the amendments to make sure we understood the spirit and the specifics of each of the amendments. We feel very confident that what we're recommending to adopt as is, or to, in one case, postpone to a more appropriate year, or to simply pass on, meets the needs of the people who have made the recommendation and well rounds out each of the candidate questionnaires. Martin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there was one amendment waiting for discussion. And if that's still the case, then I'll leave that one to Martin. But otherwise, I wanted to give you all great assurance that all of your participants in our committee really voiced what was representative of each of the LDs, and it was a well-rounded, in-depth conversation each time. So I applaud your LDs and their volunteers, and I hope that you can feel very comfortable with the recommendation we've made.
Thank you so much, Beth. Is there any speakers against the motion to adopt the 6 recommended amendments from the endorsement committee? Please use your raised hand. Are there any speakers against? Are there any speakers against? Hearing none, debate is now closed. We will now move to a vote. And if you look at your, if you look at our tally committee, you will find your legislative district. An example is you may see tally 11, 12, 30, 31, 32, and 33. If you can, message your appropriate tally member your vote. And it is yes to adopt, or excuse me, there was something in chat, or no to object, or A to abstain. Thank you. And we will give a couple minutes for the tally on the amendment to the main motion, which is to adopt the questionnaire. And as our tally folks are getting your vote, thank you for your participation. This is a really great opportunity that I will take right now to talk about the phone banks that both the Levy campaign and King County Democrats will be hosting jointly. There will be a link in chat after these after this vote. It is really important that we support this levy, and it's the first time in an odd year that King County Democrats has supported a special election in April. We're really proud to endorse this and really proud to activate our PCOs, proud to get our volunteers, and really proud that we can really move what we endorse. And I will wait from tally to hear when they are confident that they have all the votes. Vivian Alexander, I see your hand raised.
I know I tried to use tally. Where do I press? The blue with the 3 dots, or?
So if there's a drop-down menu in your chat,
Yeah.
and then you will find.
I see it. I see her. Oops, where'd it go? Boy.
Do you see when you hit the drop-down menu that is highlighted in blue to your tally person? And your tally person is Hannah Floss.
Yeah, I see that.
And then you just type your vote into the chat box.
Oh, to tap, to.
Directly to Hannah, correct. I hope it's working. Is it working for you?
We'll see in 1 second.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. I'm just not doing it right. Let's see.
I'm going to go ahead and read now. Did you find your tally person?
Yeah, Hannah Floss. There, now it changed. Okay.
Okay, perfect. And from our tally, I see a hand raised from Christiana DeLone.
Hi, I was just asking a quick question of clarification. I know there's some additional topics of interest. I think I was wondering a little bit about questions related to like rent and other things related to housing control and renter protections. So just curious to see if that's going to be a subject for conversation for this series or in general. And I understand there may be some trade secrets in there, so I don't want to, muddy up that water too much, but just asking for a clarification on the role of renter protections in this process.
Absolutely. So we are voting on the recommended amendments from the endorsement committee. That is the motion on the floor. And then we will be voting on the framework. So this is an amendment to the main motion to adopt the questionnaire. And then I will open the floor for further amendments that you would like moved on the floor. Specific to renter protections, is there an amendment that is in the endorsement committee that they have reviewed that you are specifically asking about?
To my knowledge, it was more of a matter of not seeing it right away. So just a question about, I think, ongoing precedents. But it looks like our dear friend Martin's hand is up, so I can defer there.
Perfect. Martin, would you like to take that question?
Yes, so Beth is better versed with tracking all the questions we have on the amendments, the content of the questionnaire. But one of the proposed amendments that was received, the one which was received slightly late, asks to add a general question: do you support tenant protection? So no, has not been reviewed by the endorsement committee, but is a very straightforward question that probably speaks to what you're interested in. And I will put my hand down, and I see Beth has her hand up.
Thank you. Beth.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Martin. I did want to share with Christiana and everybody that our attempt was to keep these written questionnaires very, very brief, particularly in a year when most of the races are nonpartisan races. We want more candidates to come to play with us and encourage them to do so by not putting up a cumbersome barrier to entry. We did have a lot of conversation about rent protections. There was also a little bit of conversation about property owner protections. So it was a something. And we thought, given the fact that our group had visible reactions to the question, that perhaps this would be a topic well suited to the live interview. So we could see if the candidate got squirmy or if they leaned into it. There's more of a story to tell sometimes when we're asking them live and in person than when they have a week to or more and perhaps a consultant to consider with when they're responding to a written questionnaire. So at this point, the committee had opted to hold that topic for an interview question. And if that answers your question satisfactorily, I'm going to put a 1 in the tick column of people who do want to keep that as an interview question.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you. And, I recognize again that there are trade secrets to this. I realize that there's a lot that's being balanced. And I realize that, there are some places where I know even with me and, especially asking the question, I don't want that to be concerned as anything other than we know that that's a hot button issue. So we were curious about where I know that there's an interest in having that be part of the conversation, but just wanted to flag that with also not yucking your procedural yum. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Christiana, we welcome you anytime you'd like to participate on the committee.
I see what you did there.
Thank you. So I will ask our tally committee, do we have a vote total?
Yes, we do. It is unanimous, 32 yeses, 0 nos.
Wonderful. The amendment to the main motion has passed. We are now voting. I will now vote for, I am welcome to open the debate, the debate for the main motion as amended to adopt the original endorsement committee candidate questionnaire. And with that, Melissa Taylor, would you like to speak in favor?
Yes. I'm just going to echo what Beth said, which is that the endorsements committee put a lot of work into this. We've just voted unanimously on the amendments to it. And I would love it if we could do this by unanimous consent. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? And with that, I will entertain a motion to vote by acclamation.
Melissa Taylor, so moved.
Second.
Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Last call, any objections? Hearing none, we have now adopted our questionnaire with our 6 amendments from the endorsement committee, and we so appreciate all of the work that you guys have put into this questionnaire. We are just thrilled, and thank you so much. And with that, I will open the floor for motions regarding the amendments that were not included in the endorsement committee's recommendation to adopt. And if you have use your raised hand at the bottom under reactions, I will call on you. Galaxy Marshall.
I would like to move that we consider the amendment in line 10 on the sheet.
Is there a second? Is there a second to the motion to adopt in the recommendation from the endorsement committee, line 10? Is there a second? Last call.
Could somebody read the what the motion is for? I'm not sure I'm finding it quickly enough.
I will read. Oh, let me see. Line 10. The original question, let me just read the summary of the proposed amendment. Will you enforce the rule of law by not criminally charging trespass of a person experiencing homelessness if a shelter bed is available. Amend 2, will you accept political contributions from any political officer, police guild, union, or elected law enforcement official? The summary argument says this: this question does not make sense to ask a judicial candidate. Judges are not responsible for criminally charging anyone. It is the prosecutor who makes the decision when and what to criminally charge and file with the court. Also, if the question is trying to ask whether a judge is going to dismiss a case in these circumstances, we can't make any judge say how they're going to rule on an individual case in advance. They have to look at the facts of each individual case, saying whether they will rule this way all the time on this type of charge contradicts the rule of law at its purest form. A judge and jury must look at each case individually and apply individual justice to each individual case. Josh Wilmot, I see your hand raised. Is this pertaining to the do not adopt line 10 amendment?
No, it is not.
I'm going to call on you afterwards. Thank you.
Sure.
We are still looking for a second. Hunter Brown. Is this?
I will second.
The motion has been moved and seconded to adopt line 10 of the endorsement committee tracker, which says do not recommend. And with that, Galaxy, I will let you speak in favor of your motion.
Would it be possible to see if someone else can speak in favor? And if not, can I let what Lillian said speak in favor? I'm sick right now and having voice problems.
Absolutely. With that, is someone else wishes to speak in favor? I see Tally. Is that Tara Gallagher?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you wish to speak in favor of the motion line 10?
Yes. Okay. Do I just start up?
You have 1 minute, correct?
Okay. The question is, first of all, confusingly stated, will you enforce the rule of law by not criminally charging? That's really difficult to parse. And Lillian is correct that judges don't charge and that they cannot tell you how they would proceed in a case. This question just simply does not make sense, is not answerable.
I'm asking, are you speaking in favor?
In favor of the motion, which is to remove this and replace it with something else.
So I apologize. The motion on the floor is to pull forward, is to adopt line 10. So you're
line 10 is an amendment that removes the question. I'm sorry if I said line 10 on the sheet. I'm sorry if I was unclear, but it would remove the question from.
Yeah, the amendment submitted was to remove the question and replace with another. The notes say that the replacement is already in, but I would move to amend to remove the question, or not move. I'm speaking in favor of. I have voice, but not a vote.
Absolutely. Thank you. You have 40 seconds left. Thank you.
Okay, the question is just going to be at best confusing for candidates, and at most they cannot or should not actually answer it. So I don't think it is going to be useful in the questionnaires, and I agree with the amendment to strike. It would be better to replace it with something addressing the issue that judicial candidates can answer, but I don't know what that wording is, but it is best to just not even bother with the question that cannot be answered and is confusingly phrased. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do see, Hannah Floss, that you have used a,
slow down because I didn't know I wasn't sure if this is, I need a point of information. I don't really understand in the endorsement committee's reasoning for not adopting this amendment. Can I read that out loud so people can hear it? It says the original question is an inappropriately directed question, but it lets the candidates correct us and tells us a lot about the candidate. Note, the proposed amended question already exists, so a yay vote is actually a vote to strike the question. So am I to understand that if we vote to adopt this amendment, that means that the question, will you accept political contributions from any police officer, police guild, union, or elected law enforcement official, will not appear in the questionnaire?
that is my understanding. I'm going to clarify by asking Martin Cheney to address this one.
Okay, so yes, so the this is confusing, I admit, and I'm getting lost in the double and triple negatives here. But the endorsement committee's understanding of this proposed amendment is that the proposal was to replace the question about enforcing the rule of law with a question about political contributions. There is already a question on the questionnaire about accepting political contributions. And so since we would consider this the replacement to be redundant, the effect of adopting this amendment would be to strike the first question and to leave the existing question about political contributions intact. So you know, it anyhow, and at the appropriate time, I would welcome the opportunity to speak against this motion, basically to explain the endorsement committee's reasoning for recommending no.
Thank you. Are there any, and I'm going to ask my parliamentarian, we have a speech in favor of striking. We have a point of information. And Martin, we are now at a speech against.
Okay, so I can go ahead and speak again.
Correct.
Okay, so this was a proposed amendment that the committee had a hard time making a decision about. After a brief amount of discussion, we concluded that indeed the question on the questionnaire is poorly written. It's written in a way that it's more appropriate for prosecutors rather than for judicial candidates. But we thought it was an issue that we wanted to have centered. And so for that reason, our judgment was that even though it basically highlighted that we didn't know how to ask good questions, that it was still a subject matter that it made sense to bring up. And so for that reason, we thought it would be appropriate not to take this amendment.
Thank you.
Carrie, may I make a point of clarification? I'm sorry, I don't remember the right rule for how to do that.
I will recognize you to make a point of clarification. Thank you, Kat.
The reasoning column in the spreadsheet is the reasoning of the person who submitted the proposed amendment, not the committee's reasoning, just to clarify. I think somebody said that was the committee's reasoning.
No, I think that the one that says, sorry, Kat, the one that says endorsement committee reasoning is in fact what the discussion was. There's the one that says summary argument. That's the argument of the person that submitted the questionnaire.
Oh, correct. I'm
So
sorry. I was looking at the wrong. Yes, you're absolutely right. I beg your pardon.
Thank you. Joseph Todd, I see your hand raised. Are you speaking in favor?
I had a point of clarification.
State your, go ahead.
I'm really trying to understand. I thought that the committee had suggested that we keep the question because it allows the candidate to either answer or not answer and give qualified feedback on why they didn't answer it, because it gives you a better understanding of the candidate and do they understand law. And so my question would be, can you clarify why you want to get rid of the question is what I'm trying to really understand. Because it seems like the other direction is it gives you a good understanding of the candidate and do they understand what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. For that clarification, I am going to call on Martin Cheney, chair of the committee, to give clarification on that question.
Let me try to clarify this. So I believe that the motion on the floor is to remove this question from the questionnaire. The committee's recommendation is to not take the amendment. In other words, to leave that question on the questionnaire, poor though it might be. I could try to state the argument in favor of removing the question, but that's not the committee's position. So I'm loath to do that. It's the summary argument that Carrie read states the argument for removing it, I think, pretty well, and other people have articulated the argument to remove the question even better, but I don't see their hands.
Thank you. Rob Jinks, are you speaking in favor of the motion?
I think mine is more a question or / clarification.
Go ahead.
So I heard Martin say that the spirit of the question is what they're looking for. I wonder if it would be possible to adjust the wording of the question to address the amender's concern with its being confusing, etc. In other words, the ability to keep that topic, but clarify the question.
Let me try to answer that. The committee felt that the timeline was such that we didn't have the authority or time to make that kind of adjustment, not in a way that was respectful of the version of the questionnaire that had been sent to the executive board for review. And so we just thought that we weren't going to go there. I suppose if by some leap of faith, the executive committee wanted to grant the endorsement committee broad enough authority to redraft this, maintaining the spirit of the topic, sometime before the end of the week, we could do that, but it would go beyond the level of discretion that I was inclined to try to seize.
Thank you. We now have reached 2 in favor and 2 against. I will open the floor for 1 more in favor and 1 more against. Bunny Hatcher, I see your hand raised.
Hi, and mine might be more of a clarification as well. And I'm on this committee and participated in this debate, and suddenly I'm feeling clueless. I thought one of our reasons was that this was a unit. It called for the removal of a question and the replacement with a question that had already been asked. So that would have been another reason why we opted not to make the change, was by adopting the suggestion to remove, it also would have obligated us to replace it with a question about accepting law enforcement contributions, which had already been asked on the general questionnaire. Am I off base there, or was this?
I am going to lead into Martin to clarify that question. It is intercommittee, but I appreciate your point of clarification.
Yeah. So you want me to talk more or not here?
Is there clarification needed?
I don't think so. I think just I recognize that things are confusing. The committee's discussion about this proposed amendment was that the effect of it was not going to be to have redundant questions on the questionnaire, that eliminating redundant questions is part of our editorial prerogative. And so the effect of the amendment would simply be to strike this problematic question.
And I'm going to remind, the motion on the floor is to strike the line 10 from the questionnaire, which I had read out initially. We have a point of clarification. I'm going to ask for the next hand, which is speaking in favor of the amendment and one against before we move to vote. Dwight Russo, I see your hand raised.
Actually, I had a point of order. Is it appropriate to have a motion to amend this motion to have the striking the question but not replaced with another question?
It is appropriate.
I so move.
And can you restate your motion?
I don't know if I can. Lee, amend the motion on the floor to strike the question as first stated, but do not put in the replacement, which is the second part of the motion.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. The motion on the floor is an amendment to the motion to strike the question and do not replace it with another question. Dwight, do you wish to speak in favor of your amendment to the motion?
I think everybody's been speaking in favor for the last 10 minutes.
Thank you.
I rest the case.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the amendment to the motion to strike the question and do not replace? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone who wishes to speak against? And with that, we can move this amendment to vote. We can do this either through tally, or I'm going to ask my parliamentarian if we can use the reactions button, if we use the green.
Could
Green.
we try unanimous consent on this one? Or without objection, rather?
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone who objects to unanimous consent on the amendment to strike the question and do not to strike the motion line 10 and do not replace the question? Is there any objections? Are there any objections? Hearing none, the amendment passes. Christiana De Leon.
Hi, I'm sorry to kind of add more to this level. And so I'm also just taking notes of this at the same time. But are we saying, just as a point of clarification, that we are going to omit questions as they pertain to police guilds and funding? Or I'm just trying to catch up on to speed. I'm taking notes on the amendment and I'm still trying to figure out what we're voting on. I'm just going to say right now.
Of course. So the question within the for line 10 is the question that they are saying that the original motion is to strike was specific to the question of, will you enforce the rule of law by not criminally charging trespass of a person experiencing homelessness if a shelter bed is not available? Amend to, will you accept political contributions from any police officer, police guild union, or elected law enforcement official? The summary argument for this is the question does not make sense to a judicial candidate. Judges are not responsible for criminally charging anyone. It is the prosecutor who makes a decision when and what to criminally charge and file with the court. Also, if the question is trying to ask whether a judge is going to dismiss a case in these circumstances, you can't make any judge say how they're going to rule on an individual case in advance. They have to look at the facts of each individual case, saying whether they would rule this way all the time on this type of charge. This type of charge contradicts the rule of law in its purest form. A judge and jury must look at each case individually and apply individual justice to individual case. This is striking the question and not replacing it. The amend to, with this amendment, will you accept political contributions from any police officer, police guild, or elected law enforcement official? Pat Pipkin, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, Christina, to clarify, it's not that there will be no questions on law enforcement. It's that that question that they wanted to replace it with already exists and is already being asked of every candidate.
Thank you for that clarification. I know there's a lot going on, so thank you.
Thank you. Tara Gallagher, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, just to clarify, the motion that we now either are voting on or just have voted on is only to eliminate the one question from the judicial section because it was amended.
Correct.
So,
The
yeah.
motion, correct. The motion on the floor now by Galaxy is to strike the question on line 10, amended as do not replace. And with that, I will entertain a motion of acclamation.
So moved.
Are there any objections?
I object to that.
Thank you. We will now move to vote. If you can reach your tally person. On the floor is the amended motion to strike the question and do not replace, which is line 10. And you can find your tally button in the pull-down menu. I'm going to go ahead and repost the tally. Okay. Paul Chapman, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, so just point of clarification on this, on what we're actually voting on now. So the vote now is, do we keep the question? Let me pull it up here. Sorry.
No worries.
Do we keep the question, will you enforce the rule of law by not criminally charging trespass if a person experiencing homelessness if a shelter bed is not available? A question asked of judges. Or do we strike that from?
We are now voting to strike that question.
Oh, okay, so a yes is a vote to strike that question.
Correct.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
thanks for the clarification.
And I will wait from our tally committee. Once they have, Paul, I still see your hand up. Is that just a leftover?
Yeah, it's just a leftover.
Thank you. I will wait for our tally committee. Do we have a total?
Just about 30 more seconds, please.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I just appreciate everybody here giving your time and thoughtfulness. Dwight, I see your hand raised. I think you're on mute.
I figured it out. It had your name in there and I had to get your name out of there so I could get the tally.
Thank you. Fabulous. Thank you.
And I do have a total now.
Great.
It is 28 yeses and 5 nos.
The motion carries. Thank you. Are there any other motions on the floor? Alexander Erickson, I see your hand raised.
I would move to add an additional question, which I wrote but is not in the spreadsheet. Is that in order at this time, or?
You know, I'm having a hard, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you restate that, please? Did I lose Alex? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. I moved to add an additional question, which is not in the spreadsheet. Is that in order at this time?
For my parliamentarian, is that in order?
That's in order.
Yes, thank you.
I can send the text to you and then also speak it out loud. This is in response to a recent meeting of the Sound Transit Board. The question would ask if they support locating the new light rail stations in the CID on 4th Ave and Midtown, or the new plan to put a station in the north and south. And then furthermore, how would they work to ensure new stations both in the CID and across the city and county balance the needs of transit riders with the needs of existing communities? The purpose of this question, which is in 2 parts, is to both gauge where they stand on the important and historic station that's going to be the center of the future of Sound Transit's plan, as well as to see how they will work to ensure communities of interest are respected in the building out of future stations across the county. It doesn't imply that we will only endorse candidates which take a position one way or the other, but I think it's important, given that ST3 is being built out in this new term, and that the decision on the CID Midtown stations will be made in the upcoming term. I think it's important to know where these people, where council members with Seattle City Council, as well as for King County Council, stand on this issue.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt?
This is Rob Jenks. I move.
Is there a second?
This is Joe Todd, second.
Thank you.
Can he put the wording of that in the chat so we can see what we're talking about? The wording of the motion so we can all see it?
I think I just got that. I think can you see it in the chat?
Yeah, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Rob, would you like to speak in favor of this motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a climate, a housing density, an equity perspective, and also just kind of the longevity of these investments, a question like this is super important for candidates in several different jurisdictions. So I'm really happy that it was introduced. I think it's super important and has long-term implications and something that we should know about. So I basically agree with the stated purpose.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker against the motion to adopt Alexander Erickson's amendment to our candidate questionnaire? Beth Beasley, I see your hand raised.
Mine would be a question of clarification. Should I wait until you have called upon the appropriate pro-con folks?
Yes, we'll go ahead and then we will go for a clarification. Thank you. Martin Cheney, do you have your hand against?
I also had a point of clarification that I wanted to get clear on which questionnaires Alexandra was proposing this amendment B2, whether it was the Seattle one, the all municipalities one, or the King County one, or some combination of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would propose that it be added to the King County one, the Seattle one, as well as any relevant municipalities where they're building out new sound transit infrastructure.
Okay, so putting it on the all municipalities questionnaire would mean that the Seattle candidates would also get it. So it sounds like you're saying the all municipalities plus the King County questionnaire.
Yeah, that'd be correct.
Thank you. Christiana De Leon, and then I'm going to call on Beth.
Thank you. I'm willing to speak against. And if this is the right time, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll wait.
You have the floor.
All right. I appreciate, first off, the proposed question. I understand that it's coming from a place of climate resilience and other things that I think we can all agree as Democrats that is a shared priority, shared value, as well as equity and transit. So I'm there for that. And my concern about this particular question is manifold. First, I think we're looking at the fact that this is a very Seattle-based question, and I understand that our endorsements committee and others have been really trying to do due diligence and understanding the complexities of the South King County region, the East Side, and other parts that are inadequately represented already by Sound Transit. Also, I will recognize this is a hot button issue, even among progressive communities, both within Seattle and outside of Seattle, in terms of the impacted communities we're listening to, right? So I'm thinking about folks where we're talking about the Seattle International District, we're talking about other impacted communities, and I would be weighing a little bit of caution in how we approach a question that's very pertinent to, I don't want to say a subsect, but a lot of folks within a certain demographic within Seattle who are not listening to the full perspective. So I would just keep that in mind, that I think that there is value to that conversation. And I think there's also a lot in that conversation that needs to have more impacted communities represented before we really put that at the level of, this is the gold standard endorsement level questionnaire. I will just say, coming from South King, where we don't even have like a real bus line out here, this would be kind of throwing a wrench in this. So I like that we're really talking transit, and also at the same time, there's a lot of King County that this may or may not pertain to as it should. So I appreciate it, but that's no for me. Sorry.
Thank you, Christiana. Do we have a speaker in favor? And I'm going to segue to Beth, your clarification question before I move to the speaker in favor. Thank you.
I'm going to speak in favor.
Great.
It's okay. Go. Yeah.
Joseph Todd, I see your hand raised.
Okay. So even though this is definitely a hot button issue, all the people that are on that committee that determines where Sound Transit is going to actually build new stations, et cetera, come from all over King County. Even ones that are underrepresented as far as getting infrastructure from Sound Transit. So if we are going to see people that aren't necessarily affected, but are also on these committees that are determining where these new things are going to go, we need to make sure we got candidates that are going to have to really think deeply about how infrastructure is going to go in place for the future. I mean, right now, one of the biggest reasons that they decided that they were not going to even look at the 4th Avenue delivery of the new light rail station is because they were pretty upset with the CID for fighting against them, trying to put it on 5th. So they shifted it completely away and put it somewhere completely different. So for me, candidates need to understand that not only are you going to be potentially put on regional committees, but you need to be thinking about this stuff from a regional perspective rather than just thinking about it from, well, I live in Renton and I'm not gonna get any kind of any transportation in my area for a long time based on what the map looks like for Sound Transit.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker against? And Kat Pipkin, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I think I'm a speaker against, and not because it's not a great question, but because it's actually 2 questions, not 1. And also because we don't have any idea if it reads as if it's a yes, no question, but then it also reads as if it's a free response question. So I would argue against adopting this question as currently proposed, and perhaps somebody could propose a variation that doesn't make it 2 questions that are of conflicting question types.
Thank you. Beth, I see your hand raised. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. And Martin and Kat, thank you both for your thoughtful responses. Martin asked my first question, and Kat gave me a perfect segue to my my second question. That was, transit is a very important thing to the committee that we discussed quite a bit. It is quite a hot issue around all of King County, which is a humongous county. We would like to include something, and I wonder if it would be possible to work with Alexander, who is welcome to come to our committee meetings anytime. We really, truly welcome all of you to work with us to pose a question that is suitable in the appropriate questionnaire and to the issue of transit, particularly as it affects workers, and climate action. Those are 2 principal components of all of our questions, as well as meets the standard of our wordsmithing, where we ask a single question per question, and we often make a statement of fact, actual provable fact, followed by a question that they can respond to. And we're happy to do that as a yes, no, or as a free response. But we would love to work with you to have this meet the needs of the appropriate questionnaire within the guidelines of how we have a best practice for writing questions. That means that we may not make that decision because tonight is the night we're voting. And so if that does not meet with approval, I'd like to say perhaps we work with Alexander and whoever else is passionate about this issue. And I know I heard Joe Todd, who's one of my favorite people in this room. And I would love to work with them on making this an interview question, because that's something that we can do moving forward without derailing the voting that we're working on tonight.
Thank you, Beth. And I see Paul Chapman's hand raised. I'm going to call on Pat, and then we're going to come back to the voting. Paul, did you have a question?
I don't know how to do this, but is there a way to make a motion that we adopt Beth's approach on this? Or do we need to go to a vote on this question? Sorry, the endorsement questionnaire question.
Right. So my understanding is that I can ask Rob Jinks if we withdraw the motion, and then we connect Alexander because it was Rob who made the motion, seconded, and that
got it. Okay.
And then we connect Alexander and Beth. Melissa, I see your Rob, I see your hand raised.
I withdraw my motion in order to enable what you just said, Carrie.
Oh, thank you. So the motion is withdrawn for the adoption of Alexander's amendment. However, Beth and Alexander and Rob and Joe Todd, we are all going to get together so that this question is fully formed out and is included, just not on the written form, but in the live interview. So thank you.
And to the appropriate candidate.
Correct. And to the appropriate candidate. Thank you all so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Alex. And let's see, Martin, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, if we're moving on to other proposed amendments, I would like to move the amendment that was proposed by Toby Thaler, which the endorsement committee had no recommendation on, but that we expected to have a debate on tonight.
Great. Let me just go ahead and read this for clarity. And this is in the endorsement questionnaire. This is this is line 12, and I'll go ahead and read this. The text of the proposed amendment: will you commit to change permitting and zoning to adopt policies and regulations that are proven to minimize displacement and result in an increase in housing available to low-income households, such as inclusionary zoning, public housing, and land trusts? The summary argument is the phrasing strongly incorporates trickle-down theory that simply produces more housing will, quote, solve the housing affordability problem. Not true. The question should include at least a nod to the real need: housing for low-income households. Thus, will you commit to support changes in land use policies and development regulations that are proven to result in an increase in housing available to middle and low income levels, such as inclusionary zoning? What we are bringing forward is will you commit to support changes in land use policies and development regulations that are proven to result in an increase in housing available to middle and lower income levels, such as inclusionary zoning? Mason Thompson, I see your hand raised.
I'm ready to speak against, but I think we need somebody to speak for first.
Correct. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Paul Chapman, I see your hand raised. Is this a second?
No, it's not. I think Tim Burns is waving his hand to second, probably.
Tim Burns, are you seconding? We've got Martin, who has made the motion, and Tim Burns, who has seconded. Martin, do you wish to speak in favor of your motion?
I would prefer to defer on that because I made the motion largely to make sure that Toby's motion got some debate here.
Thank you. Mason, I have you as against Paul Chapman. Shep, do you wish to speak in favor of the motion?
I have a clarification. My understanding is that question replaced a question, so that if we pass this, there's a redundant question about the same topic.
I'm going to ask for clarification from Martin. Are we replacing a question and leaving a redundant question? My understanding was that was not the case.
Yeah, sorry, this is replacing a question with a very similar question. And I think that actually the what you read might have been a little bit confusing. The question that it's replacing is, will you commit to change zoning, permitting, and other obstacles in your city to increase housing availability for mid and lower income levels? And it would replace it with, will you commit to change permitting and zoning to adopt policies and regulations that are proven to minimize displacement and result in an increase in housing available to low-income households, such as inclusionary zoning, public housing, and land trusts? So, tweaking the wording in some interesting ways.
Thank you. And Shep, do you wish, your hand is still raised, do you wish to speak in favor?
Yeah, my understanding was that the difference between the two questions in substance is that the replacement does not include middle income housing or middle housing. The original question does, unless it's changed since we debated it.
Paul Chapman, do you,
Is it possible to put the original question that is being replaced into chat so we can see that? And I'm leaving my hand up for speaking against as needed.
and I'm going to ask a tech person if we can get from the, are we able to post that into chat? I can share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen.
It was posted earlier, the endorsements questionnaire amendments tracker.
Yep. And I
If
see,
anybody still has that up in the.
and
both of
Melissa Taylor posted it into chat.
That's the original question. So if we do not take the amendment, that is the question that would be asked. And here is the link to the full questionnaire.
Shep, does that answer the clarity question for you?
Yeah, it looks, yeah, so it looks like a change from when I saw it last, but that's fine.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this motion? Hunter Brown, I see your hand raised.
No, I was just getting in line for against.
Okay. And Shep, are you speaking in favor?
No, I'm not speaking in favor or against.
Okay,
Oh, let me put my hand down, sorry.
great. Is there anyone to speak in favor of this motion? Is there anyone to speak in favor of this motion? Hearing none, I'm going to ask my parliamentarian. Do we now move to, it's been moved and seconded. We do not have a speak in favor. We have speak against. Do we move to vote?
Give me a second. It's pretty unusual to have nobody speak in favor of a motion.
Hi, if nobody's stepping up to speak in favor of it, I mean, I can at least say something positive about the question as it's currently stated.
And this is, I'm sorry.
This is Josh Wilmot.
Okay, great. Josh, I see your hand raised. You can speak in favor.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I just want to say that this question at least presents the issue of displacement, which I think is something that we do need to discuss and should be mindful of. A significant percentage of our homeless population across our region are effectively displaced. And I appreciate that the question is really being more direct in that as an issue.
Thank you. And now I will call on Mason Thompson. I know you have been in line to speak against.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Is this Shep?
Yeah, it's Shep.
What is your clarification?
What I see in the chat is the original question or the one that would be replaced. I don't see in the chat the new question. So in other words, what I see posted by Melissa Taylor is the original question that we were recommending, not the amendment.
Great. Can we get the amendment? Oh,
That's the amendment, yeah.
perfect. Thank you. And this is the amendment tracker that the team has worked on. Thank you, Shep. Mason Thompson, I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. This proposed amendment is problematic. It ignores the effect of housing supply on affordability. Nobody thinks supply is the only thing we need, but it is the part of fixing our broken system that local officials have the most control over. Shane Phillips talks about supply, subsidy, and stability being the necessary components to fixing our housing problems. We need them all, and we shouldn't pit solutions against each other. It also removes any reference to middle income people who struggle to afford housing almost everywhere in King County. Reducing harmful restrictions that disallow housing for people at 80 to 120% AMI is really important. The more people who can afford market rate housing, the fewer people we need to subsidize, and the less expensive it is to subsidize those folks. Less expensive market rate housing for middle income people isn't in competition with subsidized housing. They're part of the same virtuous circle. The language around displacement confuses the issue further. Displacement is a real problem, and it occurs primarily because we disallow building modest housing in the wealthiest, whitest areas in King County. Legalizing that is a solution to displacement. Sightlines estimated that economic displacement caused by exclusionary zoning occurs 10 times more often than displacement caused from redevelopment. The proposed language gives a path for people who support harmful policy to disingenuously answer yes, and it makes the answers we get from this question meaningless. Besides, does anybody really think that McMansion mandates that were installed explicitly to keep Black and brown people out of rich white neighborhoods and continue to do that to this day are good? Local city councils are full of left NIMBYs who value a harmful status quo over our most important shared values, climate change, racial justice, or just opportunity for our kids. This amendment would confuse the issue, and candidates shouldn't be given a way to wiggle out of giving clear answers to our questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mason. Do we have anyone to speak for this motion? Do we have anyone speaking for this motion? Last call. Anyone speaking in favor of this motion? Hearing none, debate is now closed. We will move this to vote. If you can look at your tally person in your chat pull down menu and type them your vote. Tara, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, can we clarify exactly what the motion is and what a vote does?
Correct. The motion on the floor is to bring forward the new language for Toby Thaler. It is currently in a do not recommend from the endorsement committee. By voting no to the motion, and Martin, correct me, by voting no to this motion, we are not pulling it forward into the amendment for the questionnaire.
Right. Voting no would leave the questionnaire as it is. The endorsement committee did not have a recommendation on this question. So they're not providing guidance. But a yes vote would replace the question, and a no vote would leave the question as it is, with both mid-level and low level in it, and no mention of displacement.
Unless there's an amendment to strike this question, which we do not have.
Correct.
And we'll give their tally a couple more minutes. And Tally, let me know when we have a vote total.
Sure, just a few more seconds again.
Perfect, thank you. Checking in. Thank you, everyone, for spending your evening.
And it looks like I do have a result, 26 total votes, 2 yeses, 24 noes.
The motion does not carry. Thank you. Are there any other motions on the floor? Are there any other motions? Are there any other motions? And with that, we will move on to the next part of our agenda. Thank you so much to our endorsement committee. Martin, I had you on the hot seat several times tonight, and I just appreciate it. Beth, I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone's input, thoughtfulness, voting, and really taking a hard look at the products that this committee has put together. And I just thank you so much. Everybody, amazing, amazing job. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the adoption of our 2023 budget. And with that, I will introduce Melissa Taylor, who will do a quick review, and then we will move this to vote.
All right. Well, the budget got much less attention than the questionnaire. I received no amendments. And so just for those of you who weren't here last time, we have a structure that allows us to adjust our budget with fundraising. Our core budget, just to essentially keep the operations going, is about $20,000 a year. Our basic budget, which is similar to what we had last year, is $115,000. And our stretch, if we knock our fundraising goals out of the park, hint, hint, you should donate now, is then in this, we would move into the stretch category. All of this is very similar to our 2022 budget. The big difference here is the hiring of a permanent staff member. So this is recommended by your finance committee. I will take questions. And if there are no questions, I will turn it back to Carrie so we can vote on it.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adopt the 2023 budget. Joseph Todd, I see your hand raised.
I'm sorry, Carrie. I just had one question. What is the stretch goal?
So with the stretch goal, we would raise we would spend 165. We would raise 150, and it would allow us to invest more in infrastructure, more in a website design, make campaign contributions, increase outreach and stipends, and then leadership development. So it just basically lets us level up candidate support in a bunch of different areas.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie, I will second the motion.
Thank you. And who made the motion? I just didn't catch it.
Bunny.
Thank you. Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Are there any objections? And with that, we have voted in our 2023 finance budget. So thank you so much. Appreciate
Thanks, everybody.
Next, we've got committee updates, and then we do have a let me just make sure we've got 2 committee updates. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christina Beverlin, who is going to talk a bit about candidate recruitment and support. She's also going to talk about the contest every race planning. And then I also got a note from Paul Chapman that he would like to address the body. And so with that, Christina Beverlin.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Good evening, everybody. I'm the chair of the Candidate Recruitment and Support Committee. And this past week, I sent out protect and do not protect sheets to every LD chair. And I've gotten most of them back. For those of you who haven't gotten them back to me yet, anytime over the next week would be great. Basically, the protect and do not protect sheet just tells us which races that are going to be on your ballot this year you have candidates for already and which ones you don't. And that way we're not actively recruiting for someone that you already have a candidate for. And then we will start our first meeting very soon. And by the third week of April, we will have our workshops teaching people how to run for office going. And then we will introduce people to the legislative districts, the candidates who we find. And that way you get to know them and you can explain your endorsement process to them.
Thank you. And for the new chairs, this is a program where people who raise their hands to run, we will be sending them to your legislative district, really to understand your endorsement process, to become members, to understand the real local, hyper-local issues that they come with, and for you to include them into your process. And it's a really great program, both for new membership, both for people who are looking to run. And we want to make sure we have a Democrat running in every seat this year. So thank you.
And in terms of contest every race, we'll be reaching out via text banking to people who identify as strong Democrats to try and fill the gaps in the vacant seats where we don't have anybody running right now. And those will be the people who we will primarily be putting workshops on for.
I'm gonna add one note, and the state Democrats, Washington State Democrats, are also announcing this week how they're going to support us in this effort. So hold tight, we will have more news there. So thank you. And I want to give an opportunity to Paul Chapman. If he is still here, I would like to highlight Paul.
I am still here. Thank you.
Fabulous.
I would like to bring forward a resolution on endorsing the wealth tax bills that are in the state legislature at the moment. Carrie, I will send you a link to that resolution.
Wait, I'm going
to be able to share.
I'm sharing the wealth tax resolution. And it is in the chat. And are you making a motion to adopt this resolution?
Yes.
Andrew, I second.
Andrew Shuku is seconded. And Paul, would you like to speak in favor of this resolution?
Yeah. Can I talk through what the resolution is before I speak in favor of it?
Yes.
So you can see the link. As y'all probably know, the legislature this session has bills for a tax on extreme wealth, SB 5486 and House Bill 1473. These bills are, unless they've been recently amended, a tax of 1% on the wealth that an individual has above $250 million. So every dollar that you have in wealth above $250 million would be taxed at 1% per year, with the revenue from that, which is estimated to be $3 billion per year, being earmarked for public education, housing, disabilities, taxpayer justice. These bills will affect about 700 Washingtonians each year. A number of LDs have passed resolutions supporting wealth tax: the 1st, the 11th, the 30th, 31st, 32nd, 33rd, 34th, 36th, 37th, 41st, 43rd, and 46th. Many of the resolutions that these LDs have passed are a variant of the one that we have here. Some of the resolutions passed may have been from previous years calling for a wealth tax in general. So the resolution sets that all out. It says that King County Democrats endorses this wealth tax bill that is in the legislature today, and that we call on all of our representatives and senators to pass these bills swiftly and for Governor Inslee to sign it, and then thanking all of the very many representatives and senators who are co-sponsors of the bills. So that's what the resolution is. Let me.
Would you be willing to take a couple questions?
Yes, yeah.
So if there's a question regarding the wealth tax, can you use your raised hand and Paul will be able to answer that for you? Are there any questions? Paul, I don't see any questions. I see Hannah, your hand is
Yeah,
raised.
I just had a question. I'm just looking on ledge.wa.gov and it looks like neither of these bills have gone anywhere yet. Are they still alive? I mean, we're getting pretty far along in the session now.
Point of clarification, bills that pertain to the budget do not die. They can actually be resurrected at any point in time.
Okay, great, thanks.
Brittany, I see your hand raised.
Sure, I just question why now? I mean, if the ledge is not going to give kids free school lunch, why this?
Are you serious? Oh, sorry. I'm still muted.
Yes, I am serious.
I'm so sorry. That was very
what is the
question is, I'll restate, is that it's why now? And my sort of example I'm using is if the legislature did not pass free lunch for children, what makes us think that this is something that we should take on now, especially as time dwindles down with the session? Thank you.
I would say there's two things. The first thing is perhaps a more trivial response in that because this is the first session of the biennial legislature, these bills can be brought back again. You know, if they're not passed this particular session, they can be easily brought back again next year. So that's one reason why now. Second reason why now is it is extraordinarily clear to at least me, and I think it's sort of perhaps inherent in your question that it's super clear to me that our democratic legislatures really need somebody to shove a spine up their backs. It is unconscionable to me that they did not vote for feeding kids in schools. And here we have a case, this is part of the reason why they will say that as well, we don't have money. Here is a case in which we are taxing people who have more money than they are able to spend in dozens of lifetimes, who are hoarding wealth like smog. And we need to send a very clear message to our legislature that it is time that they find their humanity and tax extraordinarily wealthy people in a way that allows us to pay for things such as feeding starving kids. And I would say that is why we should take this up.
Thank you.
I think also I would be also happy for us to bring a resolution, next month, say, that condemns the legislature for not feeding starving kids. This particular one I think is important for us to do now because the session is not yet over, and we might have, they've already rejected starving kids. We might be able to help them find a spine to tax people who are spending money on yachts and airplanes and destroying the climate.
Thank you. Do we have a speaker against this resolution? Do you have a speaker against this resolution? Hearing none, we can move this to vote. And I will entertain a motion to adopt this resolution by acclamation.
So moved, Hunter Brown.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded, Roger Ledbetter.
It has been moved and seconded by Hunter Brown and Roger Ledbetter. Are there any objections? Are there any objections? Last call, any objections? By vote of acclamation, Paul Chapman, your wealth tax resolution is endorsed by the King County Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you all
so much for this. Appreciate you.
Oh.
We are now at the end of our meeting where we, Paul, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Because of the way my brain works, I don't remember who it was who asked that question. If you would like to work on a resolution about feeding kids in schools, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to work with you on bringing that back next month for us to offer that condemnation of our legislature for such a weak, terrible decision.
Thank you. Paul, would you be willing to put your contact information into chat? So
yeah,
we can, you might get a committee out of this today. Christiana, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. And I just want to echo some of the things where I think, we're clearly showing that those who are showing up for a over 2-hour Zoom meeting to talk about these issues is really a testament to how much we jointly care about these topics. And we're so passionate about injustices and inequities and all of these different components. So I want to say that, and as part of that condemnation, what frustrates me is that we are talking about instances where I think as Democrats, we're so ingrained to thinking about how we get, pitted against these commonalities of what's supposed to be an equalizing force for all of us. Like, how do we spend money on programs and projects that we have the money for and we don't? And I just want to keep in mind with all of the things that we're talking about when we're talking about how to take care of our schools, how to take care of our roads, climate mitigation, et cetera. These are because of the way that our very backwards tax policies are made, we are meant to pit those interests against each other.
I'm going to put you on hold for 1 minute.
Yeah.
John, I'm so sorry. We haven't moved to go to the order yet.
Oh, I thought this was. My goodness. And here I was writing that in that note.
I'm going to let you finish, but I want to announce for everybody.
Okay. I'm weird of the order then.
Is
okay.
Good of the order. And I just want to be really clear, just so that
that helps with my note taking. I'm just going to put that out there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And you may continue.
Oh, okay. I will still add that to the good of the order then, or the weird of the order, as I think I'll just call it. But no, I just want to remind us all as Democrats that with our very limited budgets, we have these really sad moments where we're finding ourselves in opposite ends of beliefs where I think we're actually finding a lot of common agreement. We understand that there is wealth that is in our state and in our communities that could be invested in ways that pay it forward. And so I'm just hoping that we can find the and in all of this versus the or. But it's just really unfortunate that we've come to this place when we are so low in that ranking. So I appreciate that moment, and I will just add those comments as a preemptive good of the order.
Thank you so much. And if you have good of the order, please use your raised hand. Any good of the order? Any good of the order? And with that, we are at the end of a great meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn, but just really quickly, I do want to apologize to Brittany for my really being unmuted and invalidating your question and being an asshole and not having proper behavior. I thought I was muted and it was inexcusable. So Brittany, I'm very, 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 very sorry. And I motion to adjourn.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any objection? Hearing none, our meeting is adjourned. And as everyone leaves tonight, I just want to say what a fabulous meeting. This is an amazing group, and I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the work of our chair and vice chair of endorsements. I appreciate the work that our budget folks have put into this. I appreciate Hunter Brown for showing up and helping us out. And I just really want to say to all the officers and people that have put time in, thank you so much for driven purpose that we all can come together. So thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody. You will get a follow-up email with links. Please share that with your LD and reach out with any questions. My contact information will be on the email. So please reach out and schedule time with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Chairman Mao says good night too. Good
night.
Meow. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Chairman Mao.
Oh, look at him. It's so cute. That's adorable. Thank you.